Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome to this session. Let's start by looking at the brain. So today, if you are a doctor, you are in this session. If you are a nurse, please, let's discuss the brain. Because having a proper understanding how the brain functions is a key step to understanding emotional intelligence. And so the brain is actually has what they call, we have three brains as individuals. We have three brains. So you need to understand how the brain works. How does it function? That is how you will know how you can regulate the brain. So we were going to look at a few slides on the brain. So this is the first one, but we will first of all take it. So the first brain is responsible for the major things that you do, like breathing, beating of your heart, like eating, sleeping, is taken care of at the autonomic brain. That is the first brain, right? They occur when you are asleep as well as when you are awake. So most times you are conscious of it when it happens. So you are just reading. Sometimes you get very tired and you know that you're feeling sleepy. You're trying to balance yourself up. That is your autonomy brain that is functioning. But there is the emotional brain, which is the limbic region. So I will move to the next slide. I may come back to this slide. I want to quickly go to the next slide. So, okay. So let me go to the next. I'm going to come back to this. So let's look at this slide. Let's look at this slide. So, if you look at this brain, this is your spinal cord. So here that I'm touching, this is your spinal cord, where your spinal cord is runs through from here. So this is where information passes through to the brain. And so when it comes through here, then it moves to the next phase, which is the limbic system, where you have your emotional brain. And so a lot of times when information is transmitted to your brain, what you want to do as an individual is to be at this point, which is where you have, this point. You want to be at this point, which is where you have your rational brain. That is where you have your thinking brain, your logical brain. That is where you actually reason. And a lot of times we are not able to get to this point before we react to things. And that is where the challenge comes. And that is where we need to understand how our brain actually function, right? That's why. So again, I want us to try and be on gallery view. I want to try to see us. Can you click on your gallery view? Can we click on our gallery view? Okay, so that's fine. So I wonder, those of us who can be on our gallery view, that is great. I just wanted to see, those of us on the gallery view. So I'm just trying to do that so that if I want to give access to anybody to contribute, then that will be much easy for me. So thank you very much. So if you want to go back to your presenter's view, that is fine. So the rational brain is the brain that we all really need. So please, can you move back to your presenter's view, please? Presenter's view. Okay, presenter view. Okay, thank you very much. So the rational brain is actually where you want to process information. That is where you can actually think logically, rationally. However, because this is what you call the cortex. So this area of your brain is where we call. So this area of your brain is where we call the cortex. This area This is where the cortex is. And so when you are in this area of the brain, it's very, that is where you can think rationally. However, because information flow from the first brain to the second brain, which is your emotional brain, what you find a lot of time is that the emotional brain hijacks that information that is going to your rational brain. And because of that, you are not able to process certain information, particularly when you are in danger. So let's assume that you went for on a tour and maybe a safari, and suddenly you see a tiger. Just seeing the tiger, there are certain neurons, hormones, like your cortisol, that will trigger and relate with the brain. And what happens is that there will be a response, and more often than not, you are not even able to logically think. It also happens when we have situations where two gentlemen driving on the road, one hits another, or please, I want you to give me, allow me to join the traffic. I said no, you hit me, we come down, I'm on tie, the other gentleman is also on tie, and the next thing you see, they're already punching blows right on the street. Two men who are supposed to be gentle. And so what has happened is that we have what you call your amygdala. The amygdala has been hijacked. And so when the amygdala hijack is actually, the emotional core, the centerpiece of your brain is just little item. If you look at this place, let's go there. So this is the amygdala. This is what really controls your emotional brain. And these little items you are seeing here, it has a lot of power in terms of how it regulates your behavior, your mood. And you see a lot of people, sometimes they are in certain mood, and sometimes you don't even know what is happening. And before you see, they experience amygdala hijack. We're going to show you some videos, going to tell you some stories to drive home the amygdala. But it's good for us to understand that what happens in our brain, what a lot of the things that, just a minute, okay, I've cleared all that. So what really happens in our brain, it's actually what you have here, which is you have the limbic brain, who with the amygdala, and what you call the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a particular part of the brain that stores all the memories, the histories of what has transpired in your historical life. So if you have experience at home so for example, you were talking to your child and the child simply raised a nose in a very funny way, and you just felt that, okay, it was raising the nose at you. And behold, you get to the office, you are in a meeting, and somebody just rolls his or her eyeballs in a very funny way. You just assume that that person is raising the eyeball just because of you. And so at that particular time, if you do not understand the kind of emotion you are feeling at that time, what you would come in is the amygdala, which is your emotional brain, that will immediately trigger and say, who does she think that she is? Who do you think you are? And so what you would typically see is that that person would just, rather raise his voice. Hey, this meeting is ended. What do you think you are? Who do you think you are? I know when you join this organization and all that. And you begin to see people shouting at themselves in an organization. What has happened is that information was supposed to have moved from through the first brain to this rational brain, where you have the cortex. Your cortex is where you use for your rational and logical reasoning. But when the limbic has hijacked it, particularly the amygdala, when the amygdala has hijacked the information, then what you get is a response, and the response is always very spontaneous. And when there is an amygdala hijack, it can last for as long as 18 minutes, and the aftermath of that hijack can put you in another mood for as long as 4 to 5 hours. And what you see in such situation is that after a few hours, there is a kind of remorse by the individual. The individual begins to say, why did I do this? What transpired? Why couldn't I control myself? And the person will say, hey, I wasn't even raising my eyebrows because of you. I was actually having a system here, and I saw somebody, and I just mirror what the person was doing. It wasn't even because of you. On the road, when you see two individuals stretching, punch, even in homes, you find out that certain couples, they're just talking before you see one person is picking up plate, breakable plate, hitting the television screen, destroying. By the time that person calms down, when the rational brain now has the opportunity to settle down and digest the information, and the amygdala, the limbic brain, has released that information to the rational and logic brain, then the person begins to feel remorse. Oh, why did I do that? Somebody has slapped somebody. Somebody slapped a boss in the office. Somebody yelled at a boss. Somebody did this and did that. So it's very important for us to understand the role of the brain and how the brain works. So in order to round off this session, I will move to just demonstrate a few things. So the amygdala and hippocampus, they are very important. So the amygdala is the emotional core center of the brain, whose primary role is to trigger fear. It is the body anxiety switch. It brings that anxiety. It's always spontaneous. And a lot of times, unless you understand emotions and how emotions work, and know that you have an emotional brain, which is different from your rational brain, and also understanding that information that is passed on to you gets to the emotional brain before it gets to the rational brain. And so whenever things like that happens, for example, you are on the road, if somebody yell at you, rather than yelling back, why don't you kind of label the emotions like, oh, this guy is trying to trigger my amygdala hijack. He's trying to trigger. He wanted me to get angry. Why don't you call it what it is? And he wanted me to get angry and smile about it and say, hey, gentlemen, man, it shouldn't take that. So you always reset your rational brain to be able to do that. But remember, one of the reasons why the amygdala is able to cause that havoc is because of another part of the brain, which is also there, right there in the limbic region, which is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the brain memory. It stores things that have happened before, and sometimes, a lot of things have happened in your life, and you begin to relate that to the current situation, even though when they are not related. So let's move on. So I have used this particular slide to say that don't forget that this slide is saying that you have this limbic brain. If you look at the arrow, this is the arrow, the limbic brain, the first brain, which is autonomic brain, information passes through, going to the rational brain where we think, the logical, the IQ. Why Daniel Goleman said emotional intelligence is as twice as IQ, even though as a researcher, I don't really subscribe to the Daniel Goleman emotional intelligence way, because empirically, a lot of those claims have not been significant. And so, even though I'm a fan of Daniel Goleman because he actually hyped in the emotional intelligence, but a lot of the claims, even though to a reasonable extent they make sense, but empirically, we've not been able to say emotional intelligence is twice as influential as what? As your IQ. But it's good to understand why, because information gets to your center brain first. So this is the amygdala. It's good to understand that in amygdala is actually the centerpiece. Is that little substance in your emotional brain that triggers the hijack. I put it here again. This, if you look at it from the back, you have the centerpiece amygdala, you have the cortex. So you have your emotional brain and you have the cortex, which is, I use this one to also show you, just to demonstrate how the brain works, the response, the emotional brain, how the emotional brain hijacks information. But in all that we've said, we must understand one thing, and we must understand that one thing very clearly. The other part of the brain, your autonomic brain, the rational brain, which is your thinking brain, they are not useless. The totality of your brain, the whole of the brain, is very important for creativity and innovation. And so, if you understand IQ, if you understand your emotional, the rational brain alone, and you don't understand how emotions work, the role of the amygdala, the role of the hippocampus, the role of the cortisol, which is in your kidney, which we're going to talk about. If you don't know the role, you will not understand why you react. And so if you look at that definition, being intelligent about your emotion and be on using your emotions to become more intelligent, then you will now understand why the centerpiece, the emotions, you need to understand it. That is the only way you can be intelligent. So your creative brain, it is the totality, the autonomic brain, the rational brain, the emotional brain that you actually need to put to work. If you also want us to come to your organization, to be very frank, we are trying to migrate. In fact, we are in the verge of completing the migration of our programs to and virtual program. What does it mean? This program you've done, we can run it for your organization for maybe 4 streams in a month, 3 streams, 2 streams, and we are able to reach wider audience within your organization. Next week, don't forget, I'm going to share something with you, and I want those that are here right now to have priority. I'm going to share the next 3 programs. I'm going to share it with you now, and I've said those of us that attended this program would have priority. You are going to get priority. The 3 programs, I'm going to mention them now, and I'm going to share them with you. And they're going to happen next Wednesday, 22nd, the next Wednesday, the other upper Wednesday, 29th, and 6th of May. So let me share it. But before I go, let me show you. I will say, if you have any question, I would look at the chat now to know if you have any question. But in the absence of any question, I will say thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming. Just know that from a listening perspective, we have just scratched emotional intelligence. This part, even though is the very foundation, but there's a lot more we can do for your organization. If you want us to come and work with you, if you are in L&D, if you are in HR, we can do so much more. So thank you, and thank you. But before we end this is our profile in the slide, Listening Consulting, Listening Academy. You can reach out this number. Our emails are there. Then just this is about listening. So before we end this, I'm going to stop sharing this. Then I'm going to share the 3 programs. Don't go. We need to share those 3 programs. And so it is good to have EI skills, but EI skill is not enough. You need other behaviors in your repertoire. You need other behaviors. You need transformational leadership behavior. You need authentic leadership. You need servant leadership. And you will still need more. Howard Gardner said, you need multiple intelligences. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time, and God bless you, and God bless Nigeria.